confusion to try to go notify people, so we'll just do the we'll do it at 11:20, and if people come in a little late, on time, that's just the way it is this time. But I'm just letting you know, 11:20 is when we're going to start. We're going to start the next one in June. New videos, new handouts. The other thing is, we will be meeting in the read room, which is upstairs, for the class for 26. Our very last class will be upstairs. Okay? Anybody that's not here, if you just want to pass that on to them. Okay, so
just to clarify, you got, after today, 2 more weeks in this session.
Yes.
And then the next session is
will be in June. Yes. Yeah, I had to put that in. I will let people know for sure. I have to make sure that the person who does the scheduling will make sure that we will have those dates. But I will let you know. That's what I'm planning. Okay. So we saw the video, the human zoos. That was pretty deep, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. What did you think about that? Did you have any thoughts? Do you have any questions that you wrote down when you were watching it? Anything that, for example, I gave a talk once, and we were talking about the laws, anti-lynching laws. The bill was passed, the end-of-till bill was passed last March of 22. And so somebody in the audience asked me, she said, now wait a minute. Now it's against the law to kill people, right? I said, yeah. She said, well, why does they have to have this bill? And I just, lady, you're gonna have to figure that one out. Okay, we've been talking about racism for a while. You're gonna have to figure that one out for yourself. All right, try to connect the dots on that one. But anyway, did you have any questions about what you saw? Or if not, if you didn't have any questions, what thoughts ran across your mind? Yeah.
I thought, first of all, I appreciated the documentary. I thought it was very informative in many ways. Certainly disturbing, you know, and one of the things that I've heard over the years is that was then, this is now, you know, that kind of, one of the things that seems so true through that is the reminder, now is still now, you know, it's that there's no then and now.
Exactly.
I did bring a book, I'm sure you may be familiar, but others also, How to Be an Anti-Racist. It is, it's an excellent book, and it talks a lot about what the movie, chapters of this, you know, about eugenics and the historical context that the movie so well at this place. I just wanted to elevate this in case anyone's interested in reading more.
Okay, good, thank you for that. Anybody else?
Just to follow up on what Charlie said about we'd like to think that that was then and this is now, I thought it was very interesting at the end of the film when they said nobody from the museum or the zoo was available for commenting.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that's going on right now. That kind of behavior. You have to understand that you're dealing with a system, okay? So the system was in place, that's part of it. There are things that are happening right now in 2023, it's still the system. No, we don't know, no, this is not. Kamala Harris can stand up and say, this is not a racist country, and I just know. She's a politician. Who is she trying to please? Who is she trying to placate?
White people.
White people.
Yeah,
Exactly.
the white coat.
Yeah, yeah, and that's always the case. So to help you recognize what the system is, look at we're showing you this system hasn't gone away, And you will see examples when you watch the news, when you watch it. Look for this, the system. Look for it because it's right there in front of you. But if you're not aware of it, you know, it's like you're drinking the Kool-Aid. You're like, yeah, you know. No, but there's always something behind it. Always something behind. Now, black people have been saying that forever. But part of white supremacy is, and there's, again, you'll see that in the film, is that there are some tropes like black people are not as intelligent. Don't listen to black people when they tell you what the issue is, because they don't know, okay? The system, remember, this, the United States was a colony. The colonies, the 13 colonies, and then we have Britain, okay? So we were, well, white people were subject to British rule, right? Okay, so that's, you know, a lot of Britons left to come to the United States for freedom. So what do? They turn around and make another group a pariah, with help from Britain, by the way, which we talked about last week. And so now their way of being is the only way. And so they have made a whole group of people, like anti-black, black issues are global. Anti-blackness is global. So it's not always about numbers, when we talk about numbers, that the people who consider themselves white, all right, are 1/10 of the global population. 1/10. Not quite a billion. Not quite. I think the number was 899 million something. But yet, the whiteness has spread across the globe. And so this is what we're dealing with. But here in the country of Lakewood, as we talked about last week, this is the country of Lakewood, all right? So as the micro, so the macro. So if we can't solve our problems here, stop talking about world peace, okay? And same thing with families. If a family can't get it together, as the micro, so the macro, so that goes out, all right? A family can't pull it together. A community can't pull it together. So what hope do you have for world peace? So it takes work. It takes work to unprogram yourself. That's what this is about, to help you see in a different way. So, Melanie, would you like to show Dr. Joy DeBruy? We saw a video of her last time, and she is talking about basically the effects of all of these things that you're seeing. What's the effect of being at a lower...
Post-traumatic slave.
I'm done.
Okay. Sorry. If syndrome is an explanatory theory.
It wasn't about what happened in the past, right? When we're talking about post-traumatic stress syndrome, we're talking about the impact. Everything we're talking about the impact of what happened in the past and how it is affecting African American families right now. See, the damage continues. It hasn't gone away. The system of white supremacy is still operating. When I talked about in 1681, when the British passed this law to the colonies, where for the miscegenation laws of 1681. And that was the first time that black and white, in terms of terminology, existed in the colonies. It was the first time. Someone, Theodore Allen, was a wonderful black researcher, went through all of the records of the colonies, and there was no mention of black or white. So we're talking about, even though the first enslaved people landed in 1619 in Virginia, there were still black people who were able to own property, everything that the white people in the colonies were privileged. So were the black people there. After 1681, when the British said, anyone who is white will get this, anyone who is black will not get this, basically. And that continues on to today. Only it's shown in different ways. Okay, different ways. That, and so you have to be aware of the system that is operating. Okay, because it continues to harm people. Stress, as she noted, but stress is the #1 killer of black people. Stress. And it is the stress of living in a hostile environment. Okay, and that means work where you are not welcome there. So the employers say, okay, so we have to hire, they call it minority hires, okay? But we're only doing it because the law is saying we have to. And so those employees, or it might just be one, which is, I've been there, which is really a traumatic, stressful environment where people don't want to interact with you, or there's a lot of microaggressions that are going on. And it's eventually, if you're threatening, so, you're really doing your work and you're doing it well, and people don't like that. Because it goes against the religion, and that's what I call it, of white supremacy. You can't be better. You can't. Because we're the ones that are supposed to be, top of the line. Where did that come from? From 400 years of the commercial of white supremacy. It's not easy to get rid of. You have to really work, and this is all part of it, to make you aware of things that you weren't aware of before. It's not your fault, as we talked about last week. So you've got to get rid of the guilt. You were not alive. I don't think anybody here was alive in 1920. Okay. Or 1618, or all of this is, yes, it is in the past, and you are not responsible for it now, but you are responsible for getting rid of it, doing something different, because it is killing the country. It's going down. What little democracy you had is being taken away. So what are we going to do about that in this country of Lakewood? So I really do want you to come down to that. This is where we live. And so we are all responsible for making a change here. If you can't do it here, then forget about the rest of the country. People want world peace. They want, why can't we? Well, you can't if you don't make changes. So So now you understand what she's saying about post-traumatic slave syndrome. Okay? What that means. So yes, we are all still suffering from the impact of what happened before. So, and one of the impact stories we want to talk about is the wealth gap. So what is the effect of all that has gone in the past to the present? Does anybody know what redlining is? Yeah? Okay. So the videos that you're going to watch, the next section of videos, we're going to talk about the wealth gap, and we're going to talk about redlining and what the impact of the redlining. One of the films that I have is a documentary. I think it came out in 2022, and it was about the redlining in Canton and Springfield, Ohio. So we have to divest ourselves of talking about the South, South, South. Okay, just get rid of that song, because it's happening here. So, the impact is like when the United States says we're not a racist country. But it has been the federal government that has been passing these laws. And when we're talking about federal government, you have to look at your Congress and your senators. You see, now, everyone sitting in here, everyone, and I don't care whether it's your first class, you know more about Black history than anyone in the Congress, anyone in the Senate, except for the Black people that happen to make it in the Congress. And I think we have how many Black senators?
2.
Cory Booker
And
Tim Scott, Republican.
Georgia,
Cory Booker. So very few, right?
Georgia minister.
oh yeah, Warnick.
Oh,
Warnick, yeah.
that's right. Still hanging in there. Yeah. Still hanging in there. So, I mean, if you don't understand how all of this started, it makes it more difficult for you to help, right? Take anything like, people who have been deprived of food in this country, and you want to help them. But do you know what it's like to stand in an asphalt parking lot for 4 hours with no cover in New Mexico, waiting for a bag of food? If you want to help the poor, you need to know what their issues are. This is something you've got to feel. This is your family. This is the human family we're talking about. We're all related. Every single person on this globe is related. I think to the 73rd cousin. And until you can feel these issues as if they're your own, then you won't be as effective doing this work. And that's part of it too. So it's not just the educational part that we're going for, but it is also the feeling part. If any of these things happen to any of your personal family members, you would know what to do. So when I hear people say, well, what do we do? I say, well, let's just pretend it's your family. What would you do? Don't make a demarcation line. You see, that's the issue. We are all family. We are all one human family. And the British came up with this deviously evil idea of separating the family. and it is active to this day. Okay, I don't know if you noticed when they were showing the red line pictures up there, did you see Cleveland? It went really, really fast. But that whole, it was it like the shoreline? It was that.
It was the city of Cleveland.
Yeah.
You can see the city of Cleveland proper.
Mhm.
You can see the west side was, blue and green, and the area just outside of Cleveland was red, and off to the east, you could see the actual red line in that map. I remember we paused it, just to take a look, just to see, but that would be an interesting historical piece to look up and really understand some of the dynamics from that time. I remember asking when I was young, because I didn't know when we were young, and I was just like, Mom, so, like the ghetto, it's like, I said, why do black people live there if it's such an awful place? I asked that question, and, the patience of a mother, she said, and took the time to explain, it wasn't by choice. That was not a choice. But think about that, that stuck with me. I remember asking the question, and I'm slightly embarrassed about that, but I learned from that. And I was curious, and I'm still curious to this day, and I will look up more. So I encourage everyone, look up more from this. Let it be a spark. There's a wealth of information, historical information. It's not made up. This is an actual thing that you can go research yourself. I just passed that on.
All true.
Patricia?
Yes.
There was redlining right here in Lakewood. It was in Birdtown, and it's evident on the map, the red line map, that one of my constituents showed me actually. So it happened right here.
Oh, yeah, yes, in the country of Lakewood, yes.
It's interesting. I would encourage you to look at the redlining maps and then compare them to the school district maps as well, because it's interesting to see how that is played out. Also, the Bracknell is really fascinating in the redlining map because it's like a sea of red and then like blue and green, just one small spot. So it's just, just to echo, like really explore the redlining maps because Cleveland was really, really bad with redlining. It was a very good example of redlining.
They still are.
Yeah, we still are. And the effects are still seen, but it's important to know kind of the effects of it on your own city, I think, and your school districts where you send your kids to school, why they have the opportunities they have.
Well, like you were saying with Bratton Hall, the Bratton Hall families never sent their kids to Collinwood across the highway.
Exactly. Yeah.
Walking distance.
Yeah, if you take
It's Collinwood.
It's like if you take a right at the exit opposed to taking a left at the exit, it's a completely different environment you're in all of a sudden.
Yeah, that's right.
Right there at Eddie Road. Eddie Road.
Eddie Road, yeah. Right on Eddie Road,
Eddie
yeah.
Road.
Yep.
Right, the railroad tracks.
Mhm.
I mean, the literal
Yeah.
the railroad
Yes.
tracks separated, two areas. Exactly. I remember when we moved in, we moved on Neela. I did a study on this
That's
when I was in
Cleveland.
college.
That's in East Cleveland, was right
Yeah.
outside the General Electric main gates.
Yes.
To GE, you live right there.
Right there on the corner, and then GE was right, the gates were right there. And I did a study, they had a population steady at between 39 and 40,000 people. And in a 10-year period, it went from 98% white to 98% black, 10 years. It's gone. You talk about white flight. I remember when we moved into that house, I was standing in the driveway. And it's a short street, that Neela, it's a short street. I think they have about 12 houses on each side of the median strip. On my side of the street, I stood at the end of the driveway. There were 8 moving vans, 8 moving vans of white people moving out. I was like, wow, gotta study this. Just, but we always want to talk about, and it's time to go, unfortunately. But we always have to think about impact. The impact on white people. What is the impact of all of this big. So no wonder, you're saying, well, look, we did this, this, and this. How come everybody else can't? And what's their problem? The federal government is the problem. But, to start thinking about that. Your stories are all valid. And so are the stories of Black people. We're talking about living in these two worlds. And as you watch these videos and you come to the class, you can see absolutely it's like two different worlds. And how do we bring them together? And that's why we're here.